Authoritarian regimes all over the world use the internet to wipe recent and living histories. They weaponize social media, they pay off social media personalities, they put up firewalls in order to block off certain narratives, or yeah, they do that thing of they go on talk shows and they pretend to be like, oh gee shucks, I'm just like a harmless old politician, again, instead of the son of the dictator, because they know again that it's capable of rewriting the past. I've gone way overboard. This might be 2 videos at this point. Because history is not neutral, it can be rewritten. Things kind of ebb and flow along with public opinion. Let's talk about media as a concept. Advertising has been on the media almost for as long as media has existed, and it's almost been the primary function of media alongside information transmission. It's always been a vehicle for propaganda. It's always been a way to impart ideas, suggest ideas, and make people more suggestible to certain ideas. Digital media and social media are the same. They are there to be able to have people impart ideas, and that might seem harmless, but of course these are vehicles for larger ideas as well. For example, like martial law wasn't that bad, or that the Marcoses actually were great for the Philippines. The reason why idea as product becomes very transmissible online is because media has always been a tool to go beyond time and space. Social media has no concern for linear time, right? You have friends reading kind of a news story and they share it like it just happened, when actually it was a thing that happened 3 years ago and they just weren't aware of it. In the very same way, history is recalled in the present. When we read history, even though these are things that had happened like thousands of years ago, the way that it is presented to us, we have to have the active act of recollection. Before visual and written media was oral, it was spoken, and every time it was spoken, it was kind of the act of bringing things to life again. In that way, the past doesn't just stay past. The written media kind of does the same. We read history backwards, not just forwards. We reinterpret history as we go along, and as the world changes and stuff, our reading of history changes. So history doesn't just change the future. Us, in the future, change the past as well. Colonial statues are turned down, even though they were heroes in their time and maybe a few centuries after. Now we recognize them for the monsters that they are. Celebrities get cancelled, or movies get reevaluated in light of kind of the circumstances of how they were filmed. And the thing is, that might be good in some ways. It might be good in a lot of ways, because again, a lot of marginalized communities are able to rewrite the narrative in favor of them. It's not just now the winners who write history. But then there are some historical losers, like the Marcoses, who try to use this to their advantage, who understand that if people are all susceptible to one idea born of something that they see on social media every day, and if they experience something now via Toni Gonzaga interviewing Bongbong Marcos and him coming across like, oh gee shucks, yeah, they know that that can change the past, that can change the way that martial law is seen, considered, and that will change, therefore, their future. People will accept it more. You have people like ex-presidents who ordered wars, now kind of like, oh, now he's just like a painting grandpa and he's really cute. You have, you know, the royals who are kind of representative of kind of decades of colonialism, centuries of colonialism, also kind of being like, oh, just celebrities, so cool on the red carpet. And it doesn't help that social media is kind of fueled by user engagement, things like that, and now we kind of have paid troll farms just to kind of like a post in order to kind of boost it and conduct the false narrative that more people believe this than others. There are false majorities all over social media. There are users who don't actually read what they wrote but are just following instructions. And the worst thing is that when it comes to history wars, people will always accuse both sides, right? Like, actually, your side is the one getting paid. Oh no, man, your side is the one getting paid. Wherein they try to pretend like nothing ever happened, and they pay people to pretend like nothing ever happened, and they pay companies to be able to hire trolls who go online and pretend like nothing ever happened. So that's the problem with public history. The people reading it have an interpretation, have a bias of what happened. And likewise, the people who wrote it have a bias of what happened. So Toni Gonzaga can claim neutrality in everything. But the simple choice of asking Bongbong Marcos on her show, and furthermore the choices to ask him questions unrelated to the history that his family is known for, are all conscious choices that she made that reflect her bias, that she doesn't think that he is a bad guy, that she doesn't think that the Marcoses are that bad, and that she doesn't think that that kind of history is worth remembering. In doing so, in making those choices, she's encouraging people who are actively remembering their history through watching her stuff. She's making the choice to tell them that, yeah, maybe you should see things my way as well. Bongbong Marcos is a grown-ass adult. He knows what he's doing, and Toni Gonzaga knows what she's doing by abetting it. You know, she can't play stupid. He knows that talking about like, oh, my favorite part of the house or whatever, it weaponizes his money, his power to be able to change a narrative because of his lofty position. He wants you to talk about how likable he is. He wants you to not talk about the things that he's not talking about. He doesn't want you to talk about the bloody legacy of his father. He doesn't want you to talk about how his mother is kind of worldwide ridiculed for being like a greedy person who, by the way, has been like convicted, right, by the court. He doesn't want you to talk about how his sister, you know, she was once questioned by she was once questioned when she was in university about her leadership abilities, and the person who questioned her leadership abilities turned up tortured and dead. He doesn't want you to talk about all those things, and that's why he doesn't talk about it. Ask yourself what the ideology behind the presentation of history is. Why are people presenting the history in that way? Is it in order to, again, give voices to people who were silenced? Is it in order to educate? Is it a desire for equity or equality? Is it for the acknowledgement of pain? Is it to give people a lesson? Or is it trying to save the reputation of somebody, trying to invalidate others and shuffle along? Is the message more like, you know, maybe it's better to forget this? Ask yourself what the ideology is. Former things that I mentioned are a lot more valid, and again, speak to the interests of a community rather than the interests of an individual. So yeah, as I say in my podcast, and again, I would love for you to give that a listen, that in the face of active pressure to move on, forgive and forget, then remembering becomes an active act of revolution, a very important act of revolution. So we must remember. Yeah, I guess that's it for this episode of Clickbait. Sorry that it's so heavy, but I thought, yeah, that it was very important. I'm guessing that this episode likely will go above my usual 10-minute thing, but I guess this is a special case, again, because of how timely it is. Public history is a very important and near and dear thing to me. Filipino history is a very important, very near and dear thing to me. I could talk about this for ages. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to defend the Marcoses, please go ahead. I love a good online fight, because really I have nothing to lose, man. Don't be fooled. And again, don't forgive and don't forget. And I promise that the next few ones will be lighter than this. If you're not scared off by me talking like this, then like and subscribe, or don't, right? Because nobody's forcing you to. It would, of course, be helpful to me and give me validation, but at the end of the day, your feed, your choices. And we'll talk more about that in other videos. Again, this is Sunny, and never forgive, never forget, Marcos is not a hero, and neither is his son. And neither is Toni Gonzaga, for that matter. Thank you.